John Smailes as well out there doing a fantastic effort. You know, I was just looking at how good would it be for Jim Rich very strong one too.
Allan Grice has been the pace setter for the series so far. He's driving one of these two STP Roadways team cars. He's in number 6. His teammate, young Steve Harrington, Tasmanian, is driving number 4. And Grice so far has been the quickest touring car around this circuit. Moffat qualified last year at 59.7. Grice's best qualifying time in an earlier practice session today was 58.93. 0.8 of a second under that, and Brock's record is 60.4. So they really have been well and truly under the previous best times. In fact, 5 cars have been under the existing lap record in practices here today. We were talking with Allan Grice earlier today about the situation in the Touring Car Championship, in which he's been going so well so far.
Pace setting at Symmons Plains with a time almost 3/4 of a second under last year's pole position after only the first session of practice. Allan Grice, that must feel all right.
Yes, very pleased to do it here too. It's the home state of Roadways, and you know, they're one of the major backers in the team, and so we're very pleased to be putting the right foot forward.
After the first session, Brock's almost a second behind you. Had you expected him to be so far back?
I think that's probably not quite right. I think he's probably half a second behind us, but I can tell you this, that my lap time was about as good as I can do, and if anybody goes quicker than that, congratulations to him. I think that was a good lap of ours, and the car was right for that lap, but I don't think I can do any better.
The circuit's very hard on brakes. What are the tactics tomorrow?
Yes, there's no doubt in the world that this circuit is the hardest there is in this country on brakes, and I don't think we can treat it as a 40-lap sprint, which is normally the case in 50-mile races. I don't think the brakes will last for 40 consecutive hard laps of full application, so there's going to be a little bit of foxing. The decisions will be whether to go hard early and try and get a gap that you can protect, or whether to sit back a little early and try and finish with strong brakes.
Allan Moffat is getting under the 150-metre braking marker consistently, so he's got to be a big contender in that area.
Yeah, the weight of his car, of course, it physically is less mass to arrest at the end of the straights than ours is. He's about 920 kilos and we're about 1,230. So, you know, it takes a lot of pulling up, that extra weight.
Nonetheless, most of the pundits say it's a V8 win tomorrow. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think it might be. I think it's the type of track where he can give us plenty of hassle and plenty of trouble towards the end, as he normally does, but it's a very difficult circuit to pass on. And as you know, as we saw at Sandown, you know, that's virtually the way it finished there, where he was faced with a situation where 2 hit the front. He had to go down the outside, which is a difficult way around, and that makes it difficult.
Drew Morphett spoke to Allan Moffat earlier about his chances in tomorrow's race.
Allan, what special preparation do you have to go through to set the car up for a particular circuit?
Right here to start with, mentally. If the driver can't do the job, the car is only a machine. It does what we're trying to guide it to do, and we can spend many hours, as we have here on Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, setting the car up, but it's still a mile away from what the driver has to do on qualifying day if you're interested in getting the pole, and naturally that's what we're here to do. In that respect, you can't hammer the car into the ground lap after lap. We've done almost 200 laps of development driving here in 3 days, and it only takes 1 lap to get pole. So that last little bit that you're asking for on the stopwatch has to come out of the driver.
Do you find extra pressure because you get involved so much in the work yourself?
Well, I wouldn't do it if I wasn't involved in it. It's the hired gun, so to speak, type of driver who arrives with his satchel and his hat and his Sunday suit and gets into his driving uniform. That's never been my scene.
I wonder what advantage you have in driving from the left-hand seat at this circuit.
Well, this circuit, Sandown and Bathurst, are the only counterclockwise circuits in Australia. And because our car is so tiny, only 950 kilograms, my 80 Ks is important to have it on the inside of the corner, the way my balance, we have the car balanced to go through the corners. Last year when I drove the right-hand drive here on the pit corner, I nearly tipped it over in qualifying. I got really carried away, and as the car went over, I was helping it go. So one, we had the choice because the Japanese market is left and the American market is left-hand drive. We simply got a spare one. Our spare car is left-hand drive, but we'll only run it here, Sandown, and at Bathurst. So this will be the last time this car runs now until next September.
Well, with Steve Harrington circulating and in fact being shown the way around by Allan Grice. And Allan certainly knows the right way round here at the moment because he has been in stupendous form all last year in this, really. He really made his comeback, if you like, when he was slotted into one of Alan Brown's cars to do some sorting at Amaroo early last year for the March meeting. And he put that right up on the front of the grid and started to cement a long and happy friendship with them, which led to him coming second at Bathurst, being of course the first 100-mile-an-hour lap there, and pole position. So Allan really has been in great form, and this year has been the man to catch, has been every bit as quick as Peter Brock, which a lot of people sort of feel isn't possible.
The top 6 cars yesterday were under the lap record of Peter Brock's at 60.68 seconds. The top 4 cars were under Brock's pole position setting time of last year at 59.7. On pole position stands Allan Grice on 58.93 in a V8 Holden Commodore. Beside him, Alan Moffat, 59.18. On the second row of the grid, Peter Brock, 59.31. Beside him, in the turbocharged 1770cc Nissan Bluebird, George Fury on 59.65. Then comes the defending Australian Touring Car champion, Dick Johnson, on 60.16 seconds. Only 1.23 seconds separates the top 5 major contenders in today's race: Commodore, Mazda, Commodore, Nissan and Ford.
30 seconds to go. The grid now cleared of officials and of pit crews. And between Moffat, who's won 3 touring car championships, Brock, who's won 3, and Johnson, who's won the past 2, we have 8 Australian touring car championships represented. This race is over 40 laps. That's 96 kilometres on the circuit that's hardest in Australia on brakes.
Flags up.
Grice jumps beautifully.
Brock looking for a way through on the inside, and Dick Johnson ranging up.
And Fury's got the run. Fury to the lead. Can he get round Grice and take the lead? And there's the answer. He has. And Parsons, the local Tasmanian, running too wide though, is beside Brock in 4th. Grice now wants the lead. A blow up in the foreground there, and we can't identify that.
That's
Murray Carter, who rebuilt an engine overnight, and it has gone only a few hundred metres, and Grice now leads from Fury. There's Carter. Out. 2 hours sleep last night, $15,000 worth of parts destroyed yesterday, and he's gone again. No wonder he wants to build a Mazda.
Peter Brock in the lead. George Fury challenging. No, Brock's not in the lead.
Brock's done well though to slip his way past Fury. The fear of Moffat and Fury was that Johnson might get a really good start and be very hard to get round later in the race, but there you can see he's a fair way back.
So Allan Grice from pole position takes the lead from Peter Brock. George Fury in 3rd position.
Johnson is 6th and Parsons is 7th, so Parsons at one stage ranging beside Brock for 4th, to slip to 6th, where Brock has gone to 2nd, and that's the difference of experience. 65.98, their standing lap. so only about 5 seconds lost as Murray Carter comes into the pits in the acceleration up to racing speed from the start. Grice pulling away, touch from Brock, who's definitely pulling away by some margin from Fury, who has Parsons going through on him. Moffat is 5th, Johnson 6th, and Cullen is 7th. There you see Parsons on Fury. Fury, I'd say, not operating as well as he would have liked. Parsons had a brilliant run in this race last year. There's Moffat, Johnson, 5th, 6th, Cullen 7th, Harrington 8th, and 9th. There is Benson Brown.
The Symmons Plains circuit particularly hard on brakes. If the outright V8 cars start to force the pace too early in the event, they could find themselves losing brakes in the closing stages, and that's exactly what Allan Moffat back in 5th place is hoping.
Grice now, who only half an hour ago was saying back in the old days, and it's a few years since he's driven here actually, back in the old days in an L34 Tirana, he said in 3 laps we had no brakes. The pedal went to the floor, the retardation was 0, and he said at the race end, the cars would do a nose-to-tail cruise around the pits, cooling the brakes off so as the rear drums wouldn't catch fire. No such problem, though, for this man in car number 43. He's in 5th place at the moment. Parsons locking up, as you could see, him getting a little bit cheeky in under George Fury. And what a grand job this young Tasmanian is doing.
Nonetheless, Allan Moffat will be quite keen to get through him and put any possibility of the danger of Parsons having a lose behind him, as Dick Johnson now gets right onto Allan Moffat's tail. And Johnson said before the race that what he really wanted to do today, figuring that a win was perhaps a little bit beyond him with a car which still needs development, was at least to get in front of Allan Moffat. We don't know of any animosity between them, but Johnson seemed quite adamant that Moffat was the man he wanted to beat here today.
60.12 Grice's last lap time. Full tanks, drivers settling in. He's going very quickly, well under the lap record by half a second.
And Allan Grice now in the lead in car 6, the Roadways STP car, would be delighted being where he is at the moment. He says that Peter Brock is the best starter in Australian motor racing. He says that Brock's first 3 laps are absolutely magic, that no one else can keep with Brock. He says if he can keep with Brock for the first 3 laps, that's when Brock starts to show his Achilles heel. Instead of keeping with Brock, he's led him, and that's something that will make Allan Grice very happy indeed.
Cullen Harrington, who is Grice's teammate, and then Benson Brown at tail end of the field, at the front of the field. This is the man in the STP Roadways car. It's a dual sponsorship for that team. And the man who 18 months ago was sacked as a racing driver and who started a court action and was very much down, but he said not out. And look at the way he's come back. And he's so relaxed. He's not only doing things well on the track, but he's not uptight about it. He's loving it. He's enjoying his success. The team's a happy one. And he's leading a man who many regard as the best touring car driver in the country. Dick Johnson doesn't regard him as that. Allan Moffat would argue about it, but that's the man I'm talking of, and he certainly is a master. And if you're in front of him, you've got a very good car and you're doing things very well. They've covered 7 laps. They've been racing 8 minutes. Grice has been in the lead all but about 7.5 of those 8 minutes. And with a nice little buffer to Brock, and then Moffat. And watch what Moffat does as he relentlessly chases Peter Brock, the next man in his gun sights.
Peter Brock with a touch of pleurisy in the last couple of days. In fact, left most of the testing of his motor car on Friday to Larry Perkins, who's now joined the Holden dealer team.
The best part for Grice of being in the position he's in at the moment is not the lead per se, but it's the fact that he's able to drive it as he wants to drive it, particularly with regard to brakes. He's able to be gentle on them, so too at the moment is Peter Brock, but once you see Moffat get onto Brock, you're going to see Brock's brakes come under a lot of pressure, because that's the area where Moffat will be exploiting him and trying to get round him and trying to make him stretch his car.
Speculation in the pits that this could be one of the last times we see Grice in this particular car. The STP Roadways team has purchased the car which Grice raced last year for the Recar team, the car that Grice rates as being the best Holden Commodore in the country, and that car will join the team within the next couple of weeks. 2.6
seconds the gap, Brock to Moffat.
as in just 11 laps, Alan Grice comes up to double lap Bob Holden in the slowest car in the event, the Ford Escort 2-litre.
And 11 laps completed in this 40-lap race, 29 still remaining for Alan Grice, then Peter Brock. Moffat still third, and I suspect losing ground. Yes, the stopwatch confirms losing ground to Peter Brock. 3.2 seconds, the gap between second and third place at the moment. As Grice then puts in a half-second slower lap than his best of the last 6, dropping to a 60.57. But as you can see too, he's getting into traffic. And as he said, I've only done 8 consistent hard laps here, or continuous hard laps. He said, I don't know if the brakes will go at 10 laps or at 20 laps or 25 or whether they'll last. But he said, I don't really think they're going to last. John Harvey, Peter Brock's team manager, said, oh yes, they'll last, no trouble. He said, mightn't be as good as the Mazda or the Bluebird, but he said they'll be better than Dick Johnson's.
Grice particularly satisfied with his combination of tyres on this motor car. He's been experimenting with 3 compounds of tyres available to him and has remained incredibly secretive about just how he's used the combinations of tyres front and rear. As Dick Johnson slows, no he doesn't.
1 second, 1.06 seconds from second Peter Brock to third Alan Moffat. Oh, it's less than that now. Nothing.
And Brock again going for those security dabs on the brakes before he gets anywhere near the braking area. So that's his Achilles heel.
Well, what a rerun of Sandown. Brock being lined up by Moffat as he was at Sandown. When he found his way through there, we then saw Grice lined up, but as we saw recently, Moffat didn't quite succeed in his attempt to get round him. Only a couple of laps from the end. We are now at half race distance. 20 laps are completed.
Moffat on the outside.
Thank you, he says. Brock on the inside now to accelerate him. No, he doesn't want to argue. Or can't argue. Yes, he does. If he can get down inside here, but he won't outbrake him up to the next, so...
Brave stuff round the outside of the sweeper.
And he will. He will, thank you.
Right out in the marbles.
And Moffat outbrakes him and says, you've got to do better than that, and look at the distance under brakes. Dear oh me.
Grice still confident on his brakes, no security dabs at all as he goes down into Coca-Cola corner.
And he's 4 3/4 seconds in front of Moffat.
And you don't get an enviable reputation of one of Australia's best.
That's Grice flinging it out of the S's and onto the pit straight.
4.21, half a second in half a lap. Moffat pursuing Grice. Grice's teammate Steve Harrington still in 7th place, still in front of Warren Cullen in 8th in car 22. Back to about a 4.6. So depending on where you time them on the circuit, the gap is lessening and increasing. Grice to this man Moffat. Third, Brock. But that man Alan Grice leads now by only 3.4 seconds. Can he hang on to the lead as he did at Sandown to the challenges of Alan Moffat in car 43? And frankly, with 16 to go, 24 completed, I doubt it, but it's going to be marvellous to watch. As the gap, Grice to Moffat diminishes ridiculously.
There it is. That's Grice. And that's Moffat.
And it's just over 2 seconds, about 2.1. And with only 2.1 seconds and a car width opening needed, Allan Moffat has 13 laps to solve the problem. Grice has 13 laps to argue and to do his best and to send the other man the long way round, and he loves a scrap.
Grice has been thinking a lot about this race. He's been thinking that it's not a 40-lap sprint, that he's got to conserve his motor car for any challenges that might be thrown out in the last stages. Allan Moffat has always worked on the theory that the big cars will break after a time and that the little car, fresh, will be able to challenge in the closing stages. They've both got basically the same tactics. Now we're really going to see a motor race.
Grice's lap times have dropped from a best of 59.96 to as slowest of 61.72, a 1.8 seconds nearly difference. And that's all at the two braking points around that section there and at the end of the main straight. Not to mention coming down here, float over the crest, square the car, now hard on them, go left into a very tight corner, and you can see here, there how this little hair, how close he now is, and on the stopwatch it's well under 2, and in fact Grice has picked it up from a 61.17 the previous lap, 0.8 quicker, 60.37 seconds this time, and the reason all in the rear vision mirror, got nothing to do with pit signals, because he doesn't need pit signals anymore to tell him what's going on. 1.35 is the gap on the watch.
Moffat's major problem is a gearing one. When he comes down now into Coca-Cola Corner, he'll go back into second gear, but it's a very low gear. He needs to get up into third very quickly, so he changes up almost in the corner. In other words, unsettling the motor car. He's working terribly hard in the cockpit, keeping the car straight. He only needs to make a miscalculation to miss a gear, and he can blow the whole thing sky high. So if Allan Moffat is to really pull the lap times down, he's got to be so precise. So much depends on the driver and driver control. The lights will start flashing as this traffic jam in front of them places yet another constraint on what might happen in the event.
Another 1/10 of a second cut away by Allan Grice, 60.27, and in fact pulled the lead out by a couple of tenths on Moffat. And in traffic, he's actually, although he has trouble pulling up, but is the better car, because if he gets balked, he can pick it up again more quickly. Moffat's got to keep that engine spinning in its very narrow power band. He dare not lift, he dare not back off.
Warren Callan doesn't make it easy for Allan Grice, but he gets through.
Grice coming up to lap his teammate Harrington, who is in 7th place. Car number 4. Young Steve Harrington, son of Ian Harrington, who owns Roadways, one of the two major partners in the team which Grice drives.
Moffat now comes up on Callan. He'll want to weigh through quickly.
That's Bob Holden, followed by Laurie Nelson, Escort and Capri
going for it on the inside.
And then suddenly Grice has dropped a second, 61.2, and obviously his right foot on the brake pedal told him that 60.2 was too quick and too hard on the brakes, and it was demanding something that they couldn't give or go on giving.
Grice comes up to Harrington.
1.54 still, 10 to go, 30 completed. 3/4 race distance. Allan Grice putting up a game performance. He's plumbing deep into his bag of experience and skill and determination.
Moffat now up to lap the other Roadways car, and will Harrington make it easy?
And Grice won't thank him if he does. But he won't have much option about it, really.
Moffat drives right back from the Roadways car. He was closer.
Grice has come back to a 60.12. He's still got Brock in 3rd, still got Fury 4th, Parsons 5th, Johnson 6th. Lapped is Harrington 7th, Cullen 8th, Benson Brown 9th, Nelson 10th, Bob Holden 11th.
An indication from Harrington.
Murray Carter, the only retirement, which is surprising in today's heat.
And there it goes. Harrington keeps nicely out of the way. Good sportsmanship. and lets Allan Moffat through.
That man in the south front, Allan Grice. Let's look for our first place.
Well, bigger, more experienced men than Steve Harrington. People like Bob Jane and Ian Gagan have been intimidated by Allan Moffat in the past by his determination and his intensity to get through. Grice staying in the 60s, 60.3, and there's 8 to go. Can this man do it? Can that man stay in front? They're both producing all that they've got, and Fury is gaining on Brock.
That's Grice. That's Moffat right behind him.
Peter Brock's out. He's pulled up at the start-finish line under the bridge, and it's a no points for 2 rounds out of 3 for the 3 times champion, 1974, 78 and 80, out of the Symmons Plains round 3 of the Australian Touring Car Championship. So he remains on a dismal and very far distant 23 points, a long, long way from the series leaders.
Moffat commences the challenge again. 1.8 seconds the difference, and you can see it now closing. You can see them visibly on the track. Difficult to see them any other way. There's Peter Brock out of his car.
0.73 of a second, the gap, first to second. It is really a rerun of Sandown, isn't it? And I suppose Moffat doesn't really want to put on maximum pressure until close to the end, because he'd hate to see Grice come back. He'd hate to give Grice time to think about it. He'd rather come at him hard once and try and knock him over and bolt for a lap or 2 after he gets past him, if he can. He'd like to ruin his brakes in the process from the pressure. And that's what he's doing now, because they're on their 36th lap.
Lap traffic could do it. Laurie Nelson in the way. He's a good driver. He'll get out of it quickly. In front of that Bob Holden. There goes Grice. Moffat right on his tail, going through.
And it's only 3 laps to the end of this 3rd round of the Australian Touring Car Championship, with the 4th to be run at Wanneroo. Sorry, 4 laps. They've completed.
Oh, look at Moffat!
And he won't get through. Grice goes back. A drag race, and Grice, well, he'll do the same as he did to Brock.
Oh, Grice has got... That's a brave move from Grice. He's gone for the inside, really relying on the power of this car. Now the braking manoeuvre. There's Brock's car smoking. That's the front brakes. As we go down into the braking area, it's Grice in the lead, holding out Moffat. Moffat for the outside, just like Sandown, and he's got it!
Oh. You've got to give the man big marks, because that didn't come from just what he was determined to do in this race and what he can do, but it came from days and days and hundreds of laps of testing, and he has 3 laps to go.
And I don't reckon that Grice has got an answer to that. Brock's car, you can see the smoke coming from the front end of it. Well, that's the brakes.
It's appropriately sponsored for what it's doing at the moment. As the new race leader achieved on lap 37 with 3 to go, Allan Moffat strides into the lead, and frankly, I did think he'd do it.
Watch the power of Grice now down the straight. This is where it could happen. Moffat's got to block every way down here. It's Grice.
But Moffat will go round him.
No, he won't. No, he won't.
And Grice is going to argue, and he'll go panel pushing if he has to.
And Moffat's off into the dirt.
Well,
the answer there wasn't so much in car condition, but in fantastic driver determination.
Well, that's proved us wrong. 2 laps to go. 2 hard, fast, furious laps.
There's a replay of it now as they go into the race. This is a replay. As Moffat looks for the outside and just can't do it. He's just forced off. There is not enough room in that corner for both of them. And now you see the gap that's open between Allan Moffat in 2nd position and Allan Grice.
And they'll argue and they'll complain, and everybody in the pits will have an opinion. But what I say is, but the man in the lead at the moment was prepared to go racing, and he was trying hard, and if it gets to a squeeze and a push, well, that's what entertains the crowd, and good on you, Allan Grice. And I'm not saying that because I want to see Allan Moffat beaten, I'm saying it because I want to see hard racing and entertaining racing, and he's giving it to us. And Allan Moffat's going to come back at him, nothing is more certain. He's got 1.5 laps. And Grice is looking at 25 points, as I said before.
If he is going to come back at him, it's not going to happen for a little while yet, because we've got a situation where tyres have been pushed to the limit, where they're going off, where brakes have been pushed to the limit, and Moffat's got to get both those components to recover before he can try it again.
So that will make the championship situation 72 to Fury, who's still running in third place, 50 to Grice, and there's the man, and 48 to Moffat in third place, who's had a win so far, and a non-finish at Sandown, and second place at the moment here today. And this man, against my judgment, is the man leading the race with no chance for the tremendous flying, heroic Allan Moffat to do anything on the run to the finishing line, to the checkered flag, which goes to Allan Grice from Allan Moffat in a brilliant race and a brilliant finish to the third round of the Australian Touring Car Championship at Symmons Plains near Launceston, and in a race time of 40 minutes 28.77 seconds. Third place is about to be taken by the Nissan team entry of George Fury, former Australian rally champion in the Nissan Bluebird Turbo, who finishes now in front of young Tasmanian David Parsons, Queenslander Dick Johnson, and Grice's teammate Steve Harrington sixth.
Well, what fantastic racing from Allan Grice and Allan Moffat. As Clive Benson-Brown goes through, but there's the winner, Allan Grice, and a worthy winner indeed of the third round of the championship. The driving between Grice and Moffat was clean, sportsmanlike, and incredibly determined.
That'll depend on whether you ask Allan Moffat later, because he won't have liked that manoeuvre, and it's fairly certain that they banged or touched panels, but there was a gap. Grice got in there, and as best we could see, and we have to say that with all the benefits of the cameras, from our angle, we couldn't see if Grice was squeezing him outward on the circuit there. But as I say, it's the sort of determination, the racing, the tiger, that we want to see from racing drivers, and it's good stuff. That man, well, as I said before, nobody puts in more effort into his racing than Allan Moffat. Nobody is more intense, more dedicated than he. Not, I suspect, the natural talent of Peter Brock, for instance, but tremendously determined. And not only has the team's STP Roadways team cars graced the Touring Car Championship, starting only 3 rounds ago, with the next to be held at Wanneroo in Western Australia, but so too have their promotional girls, who are very welcome and who are doing a grand job in helping the team, and who have brought, along with various of the other teams, a very professional approach in the pit area to the motor racing. And that's the man of the moment, Allan Grice from Newcastle, former pastry cook, 18 months ago sacked racing driver, man prepared to sell everything, to spend on court costs, arguing over his sacking and his contract. This the man who didn't quite pull it off. You can't see the other side of the car, the side that was closest to Grice. But he does a grand job.
Mick Webb, team mechanic, getting words from the boss. Sometimes those words can be particularly vitriolic, and there's Drew Morphett with Allan Grice.
Well, I'd been out there for 38 laps or 39 laps, and would have been a little delinquent of me not to have one last go, wouldn't it?
Did you think it was too late once he got past you, because he was picking up so much under braking?
Yes, I did. But when he did go past and I saw the back of his car, I thought I had tyre trouble. He obviously ran a soft compound, and when I look at the replay tonight, I'm sure that it'll bear me out. He's got smoke coming out of the back of his rear right wheel. So he had actually overheated a softer compound, and that, I guess, gave me a little bit more to aim for, and then I set out again. But I was trying to keep the last couple of very hard brake applications towards the end, so I think I did the right thing there.
Yeah, you nursed it in the middle stages.
Yes, I did nurse it and brought my braking distances back so that I could go hard at the end, but even so, she doesn't have any brakes left at the moment. But it's beautiful to win. I'm almost a Tasmanian now, you know, and in the home state of roadways. It's beautiful to get a win for Ian Harrington, who's been a sponsor in sport for so many people for a long time, you know, a great guy for motor racing.
And Allan, I don't think that since the days of Brock's domination of the Sandown long-distance races, I've seen a man so confident before the race. You got your pole position in the first practice session yesterday, coasted for the rest of yesterday, and were a smiling man all day today.
Well, for these types of circuits, we've got the right car, we've got the right crew, we've got the right dollars behind us. And all you need then is somebody just to do an average sort of a driving job, and it all goes together.
Do you think that was an average sort of a drive?
I'll have a look at it tonight. I might have to change my mind.
I think there's a very big crowd here at Symmons Plains who reckons it's the best drive they ever saw. You should have seen the crowd on the hill go up when you went back past him.
Fine.
You look so much more of a relaxed person these days after the problems you had with your last team.
Certainly.
And even in previous races, you might have had the lead, but you might have gone too hard and spun it out. You're not doing that this time.
No, it's right. It's a totally different ball game where I'm a driver doing what I should be doing, and you know, there's just no hassles. If I put one into the fence these days, the boys just go and fix it up, and we all have a drink after. There's no hassles about anything like that. You know, it's a no-hassle team, and it's so easy to do your job. I guess if McEnroe was continually arguing with his wife or his girlfriend, he'd finish up turning on some of the displays that he does at times.
Well, the new Allan Grice in the new team augurs well for touring car racing in Australia, and you're pretty well placed now.
Yes, I'm not aware of the points. There's still some controversy about the point scoring system, but we're happy to win races where we can, when we can, and see what the points add up to at the end of the year.
Well, ABC Sport will be there for the rest of the year, and look forward to seeing you again. Well done, Allan Grice.
Fine, thanks, Drew.
Cheers.
Fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough.
Look at the couple of cars, we had 4 pretty much